Good morning, everybody. Shefa Brucha V'Atzluche. We are in Parashat Metzora, and we're also before Shabbat HaGadol, and week and a half before Pesach. Parashat Metzora. Parashat Metzora talking about leprosy, and leprosy, as we know, is not exactly something that exists today as it is in the Torah. It's not a leprosy that we know today. It's something all different. It's a very interesting point because, for example, the leprosy that the Bible talks about, the Torah talks about, is a skin disease that when you have it, you have to sit by yourself alone outside the camp. And when you do tshuva, you're not allowed to wash, you're not allowed to cut your hair. And normally, sorry, when you have a skin disease, when you are in this condition is going to get worse because you need to keep the place clean, you have to wash it, and etc., etc. And logically speaking, if you sit outside, don't wash, don't cut your hair, you're getting dirty. It's going to let's say make this disease much worse. But this guy thinks of tshuva, doing tshuva, and suddenly it disappears. So we understand this is a spiritual illness. It has, let's say, a connection to reality, to the physical world, but that's what it is always. We all build from both worlds, the spiritual world and the physical world. The human being himself is part neshama, which is a spiritual part, and part body, which is a physical part. And when we're talking about the physical part, we understand and realize that we have to connect both things. So in order to understand and see what we're doing, we need the physical world. So this is this disease, tzara, the leprosy. The point is that why do we need two parashot talking about something that today doesn't exist? Or maybe we don't realize, but it does exist. And of course it exists if the Torah talks about it. And the main thing that this leprosy comes on is lashon hara. Lashon hara, talking badly on people. Or in this modern world, we have shaming. It's also the worst thing. Like people are ruining life of others, and with talking. And today it's very easy. You go on the net and you say whatever you want, and the whole world sees it. You can ruin a business. You can ruin people. You can cut families, and so a lot of bad things you can do with your tongue, with the lashon hara, with the power of speech and the power of the word. And if we, for example, look at the punishment, it's not a punishment, it's an educational punishment. The idea is that sometimes, a lot of times, people don't really see their own fault. They see others, what they did wrong, but they don't see themselves. And this is why suddenly this hair that is connected from inside and goes outside shows the whole world, this guy's got a problem. It's not only for you to see, it's for others to understand and realize something bad is happening with you. In other words, as we say in Hebrew, sof ganav litliya. If you do something bad, even if your inside is rotten, eventually it will come outside and people will realize who you really are. Let's see, we're talking about lashon hara, rechilus. And if today, for example, we will put a guy that has this leprosy outside the camp, because the idea is put him outside the camp. He doesn't exactly realize what's wrong with him. So he's got this sitting by himself outside the camp thinking, why am I here? And then he realizes maybe because I talk badly on people. And he does tshuva and he sees that the disease is going away, the tzarat is going away. So he realizes that's the problem. But this is when he sits by himself and thinks about it. But if today we have to take out all those who speak badly, who speak lashon hara or rechilus, what do you think is going to happen? Who is going to sit outside? I want to be positive, so let's say a lot of people are going to sit outside. In other words, it's not going to happen that he sits by himself. Unfortunately, it can happen the opposite way. Here in the camp, in the town, the guy who doesn't speak lashon hara, he will sit by himself alone. So if the whole idea is to educate us, if your body is covered with the leprosy, says the Torah, if your body is covered with leprosy from top to bottom, you are cured. Why are you cured? Because there is no effect. So, and God doesn't want you to punish because of the punishment. He wants you to know and realize what's wrong with you. Now, if you have here and there a problem, maybe you know, maybe you don't, maybe you think, oh, it's by accident, but it's covering your whole body. Definitely, you've got a problem. So do tshuva. And if you don't do tshuva, so God says, okay, I don't want to know anything about you. So in other words, if the whole body is full with the leprosy, there is no effect for you to sit outside because you realize something is wrong with you. It's not a spot here and a spot there. It's whole body. So you have to realize something is wrong and do tshuva. And if you don't do tshuva, again, there is no effect for it. So you are pure. Pure. What are pure? You are pure. You are clean from this leprosy. But still, you have to fix yourself and see what's wrong with you. And let's see in our Parsha, what is the sacrifice you bring? And this is very interesting. Zot tiyeh Torah Metzora, and then says the Kohen goes outside the camp and he looks if the leprosy is cured, and then it tells him he has to take two shtei tziporim chayot torot, two living, pure, tehorot birds. And it's very interesting. What do you mean he has to bring two living birds? What, somebody's going to bring a sacrifice, dead sacrifice? Why don't we see when he has to bring a lamb, has to be a cow, that he has to bring a live cow? Of course he has to be a live cow. What is going to bring? A dead cow? You're going to bring a sacrifice to God. Not only it has to be alive, it has to be complete with no damage, with nothing, tamim. So why is the Torah telling us tziporim chayot? Of course there are chayot. And then let's understand why tziporim, why birds? Because birds are speaking the whole day. It's against the power of speech of the human being. What is the difference between a human being and the beast and an animal? The difference is the power of speech. It's written in Sefer Bereshit that when God created the world, he puts the neshama inside, and Onkelos translates the power of speech. In other words, you're all acid, you're all, let's say, the meaning and the difference between you and animals is the power of speech. This is the way you really take out this neshama outside with your power of speech. So now, you bring two birds, and they have to be alive, because real life is not about, let's say, sitting here and enjoying life and the physical world. What is life in Judaism? Life is Torah. Life is the spiritual world, because this is only a stage. This is Alma de Shikra. That's not a real world. The real world is the next world. We are only here to prepare ourselves for the next world. So real living is when we go in the ways of the Torah. That's why you need to bring two birds alive. The Torah is telling you what is the meaning of everything. And because your living is going through your power of speech and what you talk. So for example, this guy sits outside the camp. He's got leprosy because he talked badly on people. And now he's doing tshuva. And he's saying to himself, you know what, from this day on, I'm not going to speak anymore. Because look what happened to me when I opened my mouth. Is this what the Torah wants? For us not to speak? A minute ago, we said that's the power of a human being, the power of speech. So of course you have to speak. That's why you bring two birds. Because another interesting thing happens now. After you bring the two birds, one is going as a sacrifice to God, and the other one is being released. Why? Where did you see a sacrifice that is going to be released? So it's not a sacrifice. Tell him to bring one bird, because that's the sacrifice. Why do you tell the guy to bring two birds, and you're one going as a korban, as an offer to God, and the other one is being set free? What does it mean? It sounds stupid. But if we understand that the birds are against the power of speech, so the dead bird the one is going to be sacrificed is the symbol of talking badly, lashon hara. But from the other side, the Torah wants you to talk, but talk good on people. And this is why now we have the second bird that is being released to tell us that we have to understand and realize that we do need to use the power of speech, because this is why we're here. We cannot just... Somebody is trying to phone. What is this? Hello?
Hello. I'm not in heaven. I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you now.
You hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Because I'm on the computer. Why are you here, not on the computer? Oh. All right. Okay. So talking about the guy that brings the two birds, we understand and realize that you have to use the power of speech, because that is the reason you're here in this world. You got the power of speech to use it, but use it in a good way. And this is why we have one bird that is being killed, that is being a sacrifice to God, and the one is being released to tell us that we need to talk, but talk only good and don't talk bad. Anyway, now when we talk about the guy that got the leprosy, he realizes that he spoke badly, and this is why he got this disease. And now he is changing his way, but the Torah tells him, you go back to the camp, but you don't go inside your house. You sit outside for 7 days. Why? If he's cured, let him go home. No, the Torah wants to see, because sometimes in life, we regret things we do, especially when we get punished for them. And this guy who got the leprosy is thinking about tshuva because he's in a bad situation. But now he did tshuva. He comes back to the town inside the camp, and he goes to his house. And then, he will forget that punishment he got. He's cured now, and he will go on behaving the same way he did before. So the Torah tells, first of all, let's do a test. You sit 7 days outside your house, and everybody's going to go on the street passing by, and you will learn what it is to be a part of society and understand and take this lesson, and we'll see if you talk badly on people or if you learn your lesson and you talk nicely and you don't use lashon hara. Then after 7 days, you bring another sacrifice, and then you can go in home and go on with your normal life. This interesting point is that this is the Torah is telling us, the Torah where? When he is being cured, when he is being cured. This is interesting, not when he's getting the illness, but when he's being cured from the illness, to tell us how important it is. That's the Torah. That's the basic of everything. The power that we have to use our tongue, to use our power of speech in a good way. It's so crucial, it's so important that the Torah tells, if you're cured, that's the Torah. That's the idea. Now, use your power of speech. Use it in a good way. Of course, it's not only the power of speech. It's people using the outside or the outside to do bad things. For example, we are standing in front of Pesach. Pesach. Pesach is a mouth that speaks. Pe, mouth, sach, speaks. What is the mitzvah of Leil HaSeder? Ve'igadeta lebincha bayom hahu le'emor. You have to tell your son. That's the mitzvah of Pesach. To use the power of speech in the good way. And from the other side, who are you fighting against? Pharaoh. Pharaoh is pe. You take the pe from the beginning and the hey on the end. And what if you got inside? Ra. Pe, ra. This is lashon hara, or this is using the power of speech to trick people. That's what Pharaoh did. He made Am Yisrael to work, but parech. What is parech? Pe, rach. Soft mouth. He was talking softly to them, nicely. And trying to convince them to do those things that's for all, for the country, for them. And then they become slaves. It started with them, they being in charge. They were in charge of others. But then suddenly, or not suddenly, slowly but surely, the workers didn't come to work. Every day, less and less. And who had to complete the job? The supervisor, which was the Jew. And then suddenly finds himself, there are no workers. And who is the worker? He is the worker. He's got a supervisor on top of him. And that's how Pharaoh changed us. Because from a nation of princes and princesses, of the high society, to the low level of the country to be slaves. He uses it mouth and talk nicely, but inside was what? So our mitzvah is to fight this. And Pesach is Pesach, a mouth that talks. What do you talk? You tell your children where we come from. What is the essence of being Jewish? What is the power of speech? How to use it? This is the idea of the leprosy. Taking out what you've got inside. And in this case, it's a bad thing. But you can, of course, cure yourself and do tshuva, and then your inside is going to be, let's say the outside is going to reflect the inside, which is now better, which is now pure. For example, a few years ago, I had this guy. He came to Davon. He was from the States, and a few weeks later, he approaches me and says, "No, my son, you give it to a Torah after the thing, and I heard that you're a businessman, you've got a business in this. I've got a group of investors from the state, and they want to invest in Israel, and they need a partner to run the business. And I see you, and I think you are suitable for this." Okay, I says, "Why not?" Now, this guy was living in a 5-star hotel in a suite. He was driving, let's say, an unbelievable car, a very, very expensive car. And he was taking me all over Israel and eating in the best restaurants. And then when we were talking about this business we're going to do, one day he comes to me and says, those investors in the States, they have a problem with the real estate they've got, and it's went down a lot. So they cannot invest all the money and they need help. Maybe you can also put your a share of something in this business. I said, "Sorry, this is not the idea. I didn't think to invest money. You came to me with an offer, and I like the offer. But if you want me to be involved in money, that's not me." The next day, I didn't see him anymore. In other words, he was trying. He played a game with me. He was really trying to take money out of me. But he pulled this whole building around it. And with his mouth, he tried to convince me that he is from this and that. This is also a part from the leprosy, showing outside a picture that's got nothing to do with what you've got inside. This is Pharaoh. From the outside, a mouth that we see. He worked Amisrael in Perach. Perach says, hard work. Yes, hard work, but what does the meaning of the word? Perach. What do you think? You can take a nation from they were the highest level of society and take them down to be slaves in one go, just like this? You tell them you are going to be slaves? No, there is a plan. You come and you talk nicely and you try to convince them and tempt them to do certain things that eventually will lead to the bad thing that you are really planning for them. This is tzara, this is leprosy. And this is what we're fighting against. And this is the whole idea when we talk about Pesach. The idea of Pesach is we use the mouth to eat matzah, a pure bread, going away from the chometz and speaking good, the gata lebincha, telling everything to the next generation and trying to fix out that the inside and the outside will be equal in the good way. That's why the Torah is talking so much about the leprosy. And that's why leprosy does exist today, with different ways. And if you want, take the corona. What is the corona? It didn't leave us yet. Problem is with the corona, if we are not going to learn and fix ourselves, what was one of the things that was insulation? Bidud. What is the Metzora doing? Sitting outside alone, outside the camp. And this is exactly the corona. But when you don't learn and everybody's got it and everybody's doing it and nobody's taking any notice and changing his ways. So even if it's going to disappear, doesn't mean that we are cured. Something else, chas v'shalom, can come. So let us learn the lesson. And there is no better time than now, before Pesach, before this Yontif, before Chag HaGeulah, that is going to Bezrat Hashem, Benisan Yigalu, Benisam Atidim Ligalot. When we got out of Egypt, it was in Nisan, and Bezrat Hashem in the future, maybe this future is now, we're also going to be redeemed. This is the time. But let us prepare ourselves, fix ourselves, keep what we're taking out of our mouth to be pure, to be good, and not bad. And in this way, Bezrat Hashem, we will bring the Geulah Shlema b'mira b'yameinu. Amen. All the best.